Hello, 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 and welcome back to the Women's Rugby Show Weekly podcast with me, Sam. By the way, we are back again with episode 13 of the podcast, and with the PWR hitting a bit of a break this weekend with only one game, that game, the rearranged game between Sale Sharks and Exeter. Podcast this week can have a little bit of a different spin of it, as we're not going to be focusing on the PWR at all. We're focusing on a player specifically, and that player is Jenny Hesketh of Bristol Bears. Last season, Jenny spent time out of the PWR, time away from Bristol to kind of study abroad in New Zealand. So we're going to talk to her about her time in New Zealand, her rugby playing over in New Zealand, and just kind of the importance of having those new experiences to develop as a player, just on the pitch and off it as well. Before we get into chatting to Jenny, if you're watching this over on YouTube, make sure you head over to Spotify or Apple Podcasts to download this and listen to us on the go. And also, if you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure you head over to Instagram, head over to YouTube, head over to all our social medias to see what else we get up to in the women's rugby world. Have you done all that? Well, let's get into this video. So, Jenny, just first of all, thank you so much for taking your time out of your day to chat to us today. Just how are you and how are you finding the season with Bears so far?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Ticking along in final year of uni, so just going through the motions at the moment. Yeah, and with Bears, I'm really happy with how I wanted to get a bit more out of the first six games of the season, but we're building really nicely and we've got a good block of games now. We have 9 weeks and 7 games in that, so they're spread out quite well for us. And yeah, we're looking to just keep on ticking over and keep getting those wins going forward now because that's going to be important with positioning in the league when we get to the semi-finals and things.
And obviously, you just mentioned about being finally a uni at Bath. Just and what you studying there.
I study sports management and coaching.
Okay. And obviously, there's so many of your kind of Bears teammates at Bath, kind of studying there as well. Just how nice it to kind of have them alongside you in uni life and supporting you through that, as well as having them at Bears too.
Yeah, it's so nice, and I think it's quite good to have people that are going through the same sort of thing as you. So Gabriella Negrelli and Grace Crompton, when she's around from not well, away with GB7s traveling the world, and China Kill was also part of our group before she decided to move to uni rugby instead of the Premiership level. And yeah, it's really good. I think it's good to have a little group of us because we can all travel together. We can share that sort of like the expenses of transport and all of these things that is obviously a barrier to a lot of UD students when they want to be playing Premiership level. And I think we've also had great support through uni in the sense of the facilities. Like we can access that whenever we want to as dual career athletes. And yeah, that really helps. So when we have like a reserve week or we're not in, we can still keep ticking over with everything else that comes with playing rugby. So the gym, the nutrition, the recovery.
Sorry.
So yeah.
And just how supportive is Dave and the kind of the Bears coaching setup into say if you've got a deadline that you need to hit and say it clashes with training, just how supportive are they with that?
Yeah, I think they kind of leave it up to us in a way. They give us that freedom and flexibility with Bears. We have a full-time program that starts at about 1, 2 o'clock, and then there's an evening program that starts at 5. And so anyone that's a dual career athlete can obviously then be involved in whichever they can, and it means that everything is after 5. If you've got a full day job, you can go in at 5, still have your speed session, your units, your contact prep, all of that can still go and your gym as well before training. So yeah, the setup's really good, and I think that's made for dual career athletes, which is important because the league's obviously the foundation of the league is still dual career. Um, and yeah, with uni, I'm lucky being on a sports course that I get that flexibility from my lecturers as well. They obviously understand the level we play at. But yeah, Dave and Tom Luke are quite supportive in that if we need to just take an hour out and not do units one day, we'll work upstairs and things like that. So yeah, they're definitely flexible, and I think they leave it to us so we can manage our time however we want to, which is obviously quite important when we've got a lot going on and everyone's lives are quite different.
And just moving on to kind of the main reason we wanted to speak to you, just you spent, was it 9 months or a little bit longer over in New Zealand, kind of last season, missing the whole of last year. Just how did that come about?
Yeah, so I was in New Zealand from September till June last year, so around 9, 10 months. And yeah, I was pretty much there for my placement year. So I did 2 years at uni on my course, and then the option is to do a working placement year where you get professional experience. And they do a lot across the world and across obviously England as well. A lot of people do just stay nearby. But yeah, I had an opportunity to take a placement in New Zealand in Auckland, which was with Harbour Sport, and they're a regional sports trust, so pretty much sit under the banner of Sport New Zealand, and they control regional sport in that area. So whether that's teaching kids how to ride bikes in school, whether that's managing the club rugby, managing clubs across the area, um, to also then coaching in their own sessions, and also just representing the region for of stuff that kind of yeah, it just ranges from like high level, so speaking with Sport New Zealand and that sort of national governing body, to also then working on the ground and delivering those coaching sessions or those support networks that people need, yeah, and providing that to people at community level as well. So that was kind of what I was doing out there. It came about just through applying for different things, and I thought, why not just go for it and see what happens? And yeah, it was an incredible year.
And obviously, you made it out kind of for the World Cup as well. Just how cool was that to kind of watch a tournament out there and see the crowds grow week on week?
Yeah, it was really cool. I was speaking about this the other day with Rido actually, and I think because I flew out there in September, and then obviously straight away the World Cup was every weekend, and I was there with 6 other people from my uni. Um, and I dragged them to games every weekend, and by the end they were like, "Gosh, I've never watched so much rugby before in my life." And I was like, "Well, let's get used to it," because I think, yeah, it was something that I really wanted to make the most of being there for. Because obviously a lot of the players that I like, the Welsh players, and the English girls that I play with anyway, they didn't necessarily have family there the whole time. So I also wanted to be like a familiar face in that sense. And for me, when I was settling in a new country, other side of the world, it was kind of like a home away from home in a sense, because it was like, oh, rugby's followed me and it's supported me on this journey, which was obviously really nice to have for sure. It was incredible. Yeah. The World Cup final and Eden Park was one to remember. There was a row of 6 of us, English, and we were stood there in a crowd full of Black Ferns fans, and we were like, "Oh, wow!" at the final whistle. But it was such a monumental day, and yeah, everything about it was incredible, really. Yeah, that final kind of tipped it off in a way.
Yeah, we were over there as well for that final, and just it was weird how kind of silent you could see all the English people dotted around were just kind of shocked. But
Yeah.
yeah, I know what you mean about being such a special day. The atmosphere was brilliant.
Yeah.
And just you mentioned your kind of Bears teammates over there. Just how special was it to kind of see them tearing up on the world stage?
Yeah, it's so cool, isn't it? Like when you play with these international players week in, week out, that's what the Premiership provides us with. And then seeing them represent on the world stage is so good. And it just makes you really proud. I think we had about 8, maybe 6 to 8 Welsh players out there that were in the starting squads and working like really hard week in, week out, whether they were starting or necessarily in the wider squad. And it was just nice to see how much effort goes into all of that, and nice to see them then performing, because they're incredible. Like the games against Fiji and Australia, they were all like, yeah, they're just like end-to-end games, and you're really engaged in what you're watching. And obviously when you know the players, it's a little bit closer to home, I think. And yeah, it was incredible to see them performing out there.
And just before we kind of move on to you playing rugby out there, I just was looking at your Instagram before just to double check some things, and some of the stuff you got up to looked pretty cool out there, the van life and stuff like that. Just can you
Yeah.
just talk through some of those experiences first?
Yeah, and so obviously we were working for the 9 months, so the placement was a set 9 months, and we were working a 9 till 5 job at a office base, but we were coaching out in the community. And so the little bits of like the couple of weeks off that we had over Christmas, obviously is summer over there, and so the group of us were wanted to make the most of the traveling and actually exploring the beautiful country that is New Zealand. So yeah, we did a few camper van trips, which were crazy, but really, really fun. We toured the whole of South Island over Christmas last year. So we started in Christchurch. We flew from Auckland there. And then we drove all the way up down through Nelson, down the west coast, down to Queenstown. We're there for New Year's, and then drove back up the country. So yeah, we saw so much of the landscapes and the incredible things that are out there. Especially like also just really like throwing ourselves into the culture. I think we did a trip. Yeah, we did a trip up in the North Island and we went via Waitangi Treaty Grounds and yeah, we were just really enjoyed learning about the culture and the treaty and how obviously there's a lot of ties between England through colonization and things like that and all of that, which was really good to learn about because I think yeah, we were a bit oblivious of that, I guess, going over there. So it was really important that we all knew we wanted to learn a lot about the history and how New Zealand is what it is today. So yeah, the trip up North Island was quite incredible to just fully throw ourselves into that and ask people questions and get people talking about it because a group of English people that want to know more expected that. So yeah, we learned a lot about the culture and the history of the country, which was I think really important because it makes you connect with the country more and it makes you connect with the people more. So yeah, the traveling was incredible and definitely did make the most of our time out there with the day trips, just driving because the country's also like if you're in North Island, it's quite thin, so you can get from one side to the country, so Auckland to the west coast in under 2 hours. So it's quite incredible that you can be like coast to coast that quickly. So
And just kind of moving on to the rugby side of things now, obviously you were playing for Ponsonby over there. Just how welcoming were the club to you and kind of how welcome to the new club did you feel while you were there?
yeah, it was incredible. I think training and playing with Ponsonby was a really cool cool environment to be in because you're playing and you're training with Black Ferns that still play club rugby over there. Although it's amateur and like you don't play on the best facilities and things like that, the level of rugby is still really high. And so yeah, they definitely welcomed me in. At first I went out there in September, so it was kind of the time where Super Rugby was people were in training camps for that, and so I played quite a lot of sevens with the Ponsonby girls, and it was quite incredible to just have like a new bunch of people every week, and we just would work off each other and play off each other because everyone over there is like so skilled. Like there's some incredible players that have been playing since they were like could walk. And I think that's definitely how they play, how they do, because everyone's so naturally like a great rugby player. Um, and yeah, they definitely welcomed me in, and I was playing all sorts of positions. I was playing 9, 10, centers, but back three, like everywhere really. So yeah, they definitely welcomed me and wanted to make the most of a different type of skill set to kind of what they all bring.
Obviously, it was quite a successful season for yourself over there. Do you want to kind of talk us through that first?
Yeah, and so we played in the Auckland like club rugby league for Ponsonby. And yeah, we worked through the season, kind of played like every weekend across Auckland. Down south of Auckland, also up north a little bit, but it was kind of in it's a regional league, so it wasn't across the whole nation. But yeah, it was really good level and really high level. And I think because Auckland is obviously the most populated area in New Zealand and such a kind of base for the rugby in New Zealand, I think it was really evident in the standard of rugby that we were playing. And yeah, we worked through the season and then ended up getting to the final and the Coleman Shield final, and we ended up winning that final, which was quite a incredible feeling. I think there was quite a big crowd, and we had so many family and supporters there for all the other girls as well. I think it was quite a monumental day. Because we'd also Ponsonby had been the Phillies had been in the Common Shield final quite a few times and not won it in quite a long time, and so it was nice to really tick that over and then get that win because it was like we were almost there, and the team had been working for that for quite a while. And yeah, for us to win that, it was my first senior like final. Um, because since playing senior rugby, I've been at Bears and we haven't quite made the final yet. So yeah, it was my first senior final, and to get that win was incredible. Yeah, there was a lot of celebrations after, as you can imagine.
Just kind of how did you find the different style of play over there? Do you think it was something you were took a while to adapt to, or did you kind of turn your hand to it quite quickly?
Yeah, I think the style of play like that, and you see it in the national level, and it filters down through to clubs. It's just fast. People just play what they see. They have that freedom, and because the standard of skills is that the skill set is so high, I think people are really given that freedom, which that you can see when you play. Um, so yeah, it took a little bit of getting used to, I think, because at the start we were playing sevens, and in the sevens when you're surrounded by people that are so fast, like naturally, and can just evade and get in space and create space so quickly because that's just what they love to do and what they're best at. I think it was took a little bit to get used to that, and I think because we trained against the men quite a lot, which was a difference that I had over there was that we trained touch games with the men, and I think it really pushed the standard and the speed of ball that we played with. So definitely took a little bit to get into that, but coming off the season because I'd done pre-season with Bristol Bears before I went out there. I was quite fit, so I ended up being the player that was on for every minute, but would just kind of pass it to the players that would just step and gas them around the edge. So yeah, I was in a bit more of a playmaker role. Um, Having such speedy and such young people around me, I think that also pushed me in a way that was different because when I was playing 10, it's a very different responsibility to when you're playing back three or full back, which is obviously what I mainly the position I mainly play in. So yeah, it definitely pushed me to make decisions at the line a lot more and kind of be in that decision making role throughout the game rather than necessarily when the ball's in the backfield or when you're controlling the back three. I think yeah, it definitely pushed my skill set in that sense that I was forced to make decisions on the line and I was forced to kind of be confronted with um, an option and have to make the right one in the right time. So yeah, definitely pushed my skill set, which was really cool and took a little bit to get used to, but ended up just loving it and just playing whatever we saw, which was really fun.
Have you had any kind of comments from the Bears coaches said about how your kind of game has changed since you've been over there, or has he kind of have they noticed that difference in how you've changed since you've come back?
I think yeah, they noticed that I'm more confident and I'm I'm a lot more aware of being on the pitch and where I am in the space and where it can be because obviously being in that 10 position that I was a bit with Ponsonby, you have to see that space quicker. You have to control your whole team to try and get into that space and create tries essentially. And yeah, I think they've definitely seen that I'm more confident and I have that more awareness because I think in the Premiership before I'd gone from under 18s and England pathway things like under 20s and under 18s TDG to then moving away for uni and then getting into Bristol Bears within COVID year. And the first year that we had properly with the Bears was when we moved to the High Performance Centre and Dave Ward became our coach. And so in that first year, me and Grace Crompton always talk about how much we learned really about rugby in that year because I think when you're younger, you do kind of just play however you want to, and there's not necessarily structures in place. But when Dave came along, and you could see definitely with how we played in that first season, with Dave as our coach, that he brought in a different style of rugby and a style of rugby that has more structure, and then it's finding the best options within that. So, yeah, going from under 18s to then getting thrown into quite structured and Premiership rugby was quite a big jump. So then taking that step and being like, okay, let's go and play New Zealand. I think I kind of refound how I want to play and um how I want what my super strengths are pretty much. To then bring them back and be like, okay, I can fit these into our shape in this way and I can do that. I think it was like quite a bit of learning in the first few years and do things in a way that I think will really put me in the best stead going forward.
And just how you mentioned culture a few times, just kind of how important is it for you to kind of experience a different culture and learn not just on the pitch but off it as well?
Yeah, I think culture was a huge thing that Ponsonby Phillies really, really thrived off. And I think that the kind of connections that we had on the pitch were definitely due to the fact that we spent a lot of time off the pitch. We'd have a sausage like a barbecue after a lot of our training sessions, and we'd have like those little things that just make everyone a little bit closer. And I think that really drives the culture that of a team, and really pushes you to go forward. Obviously, being in New Zealand, the Māori and Pacific culture is also um I guess different in a way to home. Like family is such a big part of it, and you hear people talk about whānau, you hear Ruby too, and a lot of people like at the World Cup final, singing Tu Te Mai, and yeah, I think it's a massive thing, how important culture is out there, and it was really good to embrace that and just fully send myself into it. I think like there's a word in Māori, whakawhanaungatanga, which is um, basically about the connections you build, and the creating relationships is so important for creating that environment where you will then thrive. And I think within my working environment at Harbour Sport, my placement organisation, and also within the rugby group, I think that was something that's definitely resonated quite closely with me, and I've definitely brought it back into my life now, whether that's at uni or within rugby. I think creating those really meaningful relationships with people and coaches and friends around you, I think that kind of means you have that support around you, and means that you actually um, know these people on a deeper level, and that kind of puts you ahead of other people when you're trying to work with them and when you play off people. Yeah, it was an incredible year to just kind of take a step back and really put things into perspective, and could be quite present in myself again. I think I guess with being thrown into Premiership, you kind of are thrown into it all, and I think the year out kind of allowed me to live a little bit with my own freedom, and also um find things about myself, and learn about the culture and my working environment, and how I work best with people around me. And obviously bringing that back is has been really nice to see and feel in myself.
And just having a look at the Ponsonby side that you played in, are there kind of any players that we should be keeping an eye out over here for the coming years for the Black Ferns?
Yeah. Well, you have Sylvia Brunt. She's an incredible centre. I played with her each week with Ponsonby, and that's the sort of yeah, she kind of set the standard that we wanted to play at, and she's 20, just turned 20. She's an incredible talent. And she's starting with the Black Ferns week in, week out already. There's Angelica Meke Vahai, who's played with the Black Ferns XV, their kind of pathway setup that they created. She's an incredible talent as well, and played a great season with Auckland this year. And yeah, I think ended up getting nominated for New Zealand Young Player of the Year. And yeah, there's a lot of players that yeah, incredible to play by, and also to play next to, and to just really appreciate how talented they are at such a young age, because they play school rugby, and school rugby is at such a high level over there that they then can flip that into senior rugby straight away, because they're playing at a high level within school. It's not much of a drop off when they play club rugby. Um, and yeah, there's definitely two that you should definitely keep an eye out for Black Ferns throughout the years, and there's I think you could name a lot of the Ponsonby Phillies squad, and they're playing national rugby over there. I think there was well over 10 Ponsonby Phillies players in the Blues squad, and in the Fire Palmer Cup Auckland squad. So yeah, they definitely are paving the way, which is cool to see. Phillies worldwide is what is what they love to say.
And you kind of just touched on there about their rugby setups are going straight from school into kind of senior level so quickly. Do you think that's something England, kind of the UK, can learn from, about having those more pathways and not just going from a club setup straight into a Prem C of E, or playing for a championship club, or jumping straight into Bucks rugby?
Yeah, I think in New Zealand, like the funding is still at the top. So Super Rugby, there's 4 teams across the nation. And they're the ones that are playing at the highest level. But Farrow Palmer Cup, sorry, um, is then the next level, and then it's club rugby after that. So I think in their season they have a lot more opportunity to play different types of rugby and with different teams and players, and I think that's obviously a really cool thing for them. In England, with the Premiership being 11 months pretty much of the year, it's a very um, intense kind of program that we have, and it's really great that they're pushing the professionalism of the game, because an 11-month season in a way means you have a big block of preseason where you build as a squad, and then you have the whole season with the Premiership League and the Cup to kind of yeah, put yourself each week, put yourself in a better position to then make the qualifiers. I think, yeah, you do see a bit of a drop off between Championship and Premiership, and I think that's definitely important um, in kind of the future of women's rugby and the league itself, because obviously you need to support those pathways that are leading to Premiership rugby. Personally, I went through the Centre of Excellence and TDG, and then England under 20s before getting to Premiership level, which is yeah, I was that very lucky to have that opportunity to go through the whole pathway before getting there. So I think the professionalism of the game at the top level, I was kind of prepared for a little bit, but I do think that because rugby is a sport that a lot of people also pick up a little bit later. Maybe at university, you see a lot of the best players now that started when they were 20, or older. And so I think, yeah, definitely bringing and pushing girls rugby and rugby at each rugby club across the country is a really big thing for the development of the game, and for more people to have even more experience and exposure from a young age, because in New Zealand they play it from like as soon as they can run around, and they play it in the streets with their friends and with their family, and they play, yeah, it's just part of the culture, really. Like, rugby is a huge sport in the country, so that is why they're so good at it. That's why they have so much talent, is because they're playing it throughout every age group. So yeah, I definitely think that playing in schools and playing when people are a bit younger is going to improve that skill set, and improve, yeah, that kind of side of things in the game. Yeah, investment in girls rugby and the pathway a bit more would definitely put the league even further apart, and the Red Roses and other UK nations, aside from other teams across the world, for sure.
And just the final one for me, obviously, you mentioned you being in your final year at Bath. Kind of what's next for you in terms of post-uni life, both kind of on and off the pitch?
Yeah, so hopefully graduating in July this year. And yeah, I'm in the future, I want to be getting more representative honours at international level, push on for the senior squads. Um, Obviously the Lions tour being announced recently is obviously a really cool thing, and a great thing to give people an aim that's in a few years, when the other nations, so say Wales, Ireland, Scotland, is that everyone is pushing on, because their nations will then be like, okay, let's invest in it, because there's a tangible goal to strive for, and having more players in the Lions squad and things like that. So yeah, definitely that Lions squad is a really cool thing for more people to aim for. Personally have another goal, which is within sevens, to play on the World Series of Sevens. Had a taster of that the summer before I went to New Zealand, and was in lucky to be in the camp there and played at London Sevens within the wider squad. So yeah, that exposure that we had there was quite incredible, and I think the lifestyle they live, like training and playing and traveling and experiencing cultures across the world, I think that's a lifestyle that is quite incredible, and I guess a dream lifestyle for a lot of people. But yeah, a personal goal for me is playing sevens on that world stage, and I think in the next 5 years or so, like there's opportunities across the world, really, like in Japan, sevens, things like that, to be a professional athlete and to train for, say, 3 months of the year and be competing at a high level within sevens. So that's a cool opportunity for me to possibly take in the future. But yeah, wanting to win the league and win the cup with Bristol Bears this season, and looking to keep playing Premiership rugby, because I think it is putting me in great stead as an athlete as well as a rugby player. And obviously with programs being built around dual career athletes, it allows me to also have stuff outside of my sport. So yeah, I think a big thing in the professionalization of the game and the league is putting those dual career athletes at the forefront of discussions, because the league is built on dual career athletes. And I'm actually doing my dissertation on dual career athletes in the Premiership. And kind of, yeah, how they need to be supported going forward, so that we don't have a bigger gap between internationals and players that are training, competing at the same level as those internationals, but also have a lot going on outside. So yeah, I think it's an exciting time to be in the league, and I think currently as a dual career athlete, it's a good time to be pushing the standards for us and for future generations, because you see where the league's at now. It's come on incredible amounts in the last 3 years. So in the next 3 years, when it's hopefully going to maybe turn professional in the next, well, within a few seasons, yeah, I think it's really exciting, and I want to definitely be involved in that journey with the Premiership for sure.
Perfect. That was brilliant. Thank you so much for taking your time out of your day, and best of luck for the rest of the season.
Great. Thank you so much, Sam. Thanks.